It is the 24th of August, 1782. You are standing on the quarterdeck of a British merchantman named the Albatross, 3 weeks out of Bridgetown, bound for Liverpool with a hold full of sugar and rum. You are 29 years old. You have a wife in Bristol named Mary. You have a son you have not yet met. In 96 hours, you will be drinking the blood of a man you ate dinner with last Tuesday. But you don't know that yet. Right now, you only know that something is wrong. The barometer in the captain's cabin has dropped further in the last 2 hours than Captain Edward Hollis has ever seen it drop in 22 years at sea. He has not said this out loud. He doesn't have to. You watch him tap the glass with one yellow fingernail. Watch the mercury slide lower like it's running from something, and you watch the color leave his face. Sailors notice these things. Sailors are professional noticers. It is the only skill that keeps you alive in a wooden box floating on 6,000 feet of black water. The sky has turned the wrong color. Not grey, not black. A sickly, bruised yellow-green, like the inside of an old wound. The air is hot and motionless, and tastes like copper. Seabirds, frigates, terns, gulls are streaking past the ship in a single direction, away from where you are going. None of them are cooling. None of them. The ocean has gone glassy and slick, oily. The swells long and slow, and somehow obscene, like something enormous is breathing underneath you. This is the silence before a hurricane. In 1782, nobody calls it that. They call it a great blow. They call it the devil's weather. They call it what their fathers called it. You take a brass compass out of your coat pocket. Your father gave it to you when you were 13. The needle is spinning in slow, lazy circles. It cannot find north. It has decided north is no longer a concept that applies. Now, forget what the movies told you. Forget the Hollywood version where flinty-eyed captains lash themselves to the wheel and bellow shanties into the gale while the orchestra swells. That is a lie sold to landsmen by men who have never smelled a real ship. The reality is that 18th century sailors could not swim. Swimming was considered bad luck, and most never learned. The reality is that your hull is 12 inches of oak between you and the abyss, that your life jacket is a Hail Mary, that the man next to you will defecate himself in terror within the hour, and that the captain's flintlock pistol is not for the storm, it is for the crew. There is no Coast Guard. There is no radio. There is no rescue. You are 600 miles from the nearest port. The 18th century survival rate for a Caribbean hurricane at sea was roughly the same as that of a candle held out a carriage window. The Beaufort scale will not be invented for another 23 years, which means nobody has even bothered to give what is about to happen to you a name. You will descend over the next 4 weeks through 5 distinct circles of hell: the storm, the wreck, the open boat, the thirst, and the thing men do in silence when the food runs out. The compass keeps spinning. You should have
That
stayed
evening,
in
the air
Bristol.
hung heavy.
You should have stayed in
It was the
Bristol.
kind of calm that
But you
precedes the
didn't.
deepest horrors of the
And now
Atlantic.
the wind arrives. It does not build. It does not warn. At 7 minutes past 4 in the afternoon, the oily silence rips open, and the first true gust hits the Albatross broadside at 60 miles an hour. The ship leans. A water cask on the main deck tears loose and rolls into a midshipman named Cooper, snapping his left leg below the knee with a sound like a green branch breaking. He screams. Nobody helps him. There is no time. The wind is already at 70, then 80. By 6 o'clock, you are inside something. The official Beaufort scale will one day call force 1, 2 winds in excess of 130 miles per hour, and nobody on this ship will ever again use a metaphor to describe what that feels like. There is no metaphor. The wind has weight. It has teeth. It pushes the breath back down your throat and into your stomach. And when you try to shout an order to the man 6 feet away from you, the sound is gone before it leaves your mouth. Captain Hollis bellows the words every sailor in the Atlantic dreads. All hands aloft. Reef the topsails. Understand what this means. In the year 1782, it means human beings barefoot, because shoes slip on wet rope, climb 100 feet of rigging in pitch darkness, in a hurricane, to claw at sails the size of barn doors and tie them down by hand. There is no harness. There is no safety line. There is the rope, your fingers, and gravity. You go up because the captain told you to, and because if you don't, the sails will explode. And if the sails explode, the masts go. And if the masts go, everyone dies. So you climb. Thomas Hodges is 22 years old. He has been at sea since he was 9. He is the best topman on the ship. He gets 70 feet up the mainmast before a gust lifts him clean off the yard like a man brushing lint off a coat. You hear him shout once on the way down. Then you hear him hit the deck. It is not a thud. It is wetter than that. The carpenter has to use a holy stone to scrub the planking before dawn. And there isn't going to be a dawn anyone wants to see. Below your feet, in the dark of the lower decks, it is worse. The pumps. Always the pumps. 4 men per handle, working in shifts of 15 minutes, because human muscle gives out faster than the ocean does. The water in the hold is rising. 3 inches, 6 inches, a foot. The bilge has been opened up by the strain, and the smell coming out of it is something you will still smell when you are 60 years old. Rotten timber, drowned rats, 100 years of vomit, sour beer, human waste, and the iron tang of seawater eating iron fittings. Men pump until their hands burst open. Then other men take over. Then those men's hands burst open. The ship's surgeon, a drunk named Bellamy, is wrapping torn flesh in tar-soaked linen and shoving the wounded back to the handles, because the alternative is everyone drowning topside. Captain Hollis has run out of options. The Albatross is heeling 30 degrees to leeward. One more roll and she goes over. So he gives the order. That is the maritime equivalent of cutting off your own leg to escape a trap. cut down the mainmast. 3 men with boarding axes hack at a 2-foot thick column of seasoned oak while the ship tries to throw them off. It takes 8 minutes. When the mast finally goes, it does not fall cleanly. It rips a section of the starboard rigging out with it, and 3 sailors, Robert Pike, William Avery, and a Portuguese deckhand, whose name nobody on board ever bothered to learn, are tangled in the lines and dragged into the black water with it. They are alive when they go in. They cannot swim. Nobody in the 1700s teaches sailors to swim, because swimming is considered bad luck, and because a man who can swim only drowns more slowly. They are gone in under 20 seconds. The ocean does not even change color. Below decks, the passengers are locked in. This is standard procedure. Panicking civilians on a working deck get sailors killed, so they are sealed behind a hatch in the dark with a single lantern swinging on a chain, and they listen to the ship come apart around them. A merchant's wife named Eleanor Thatcher clutches a leather-bound Bible to her chest and recites the 23rd Psalm in a voice that climbs higher and higher until it is no longer a voice. Her 8-year-old son vomits down the front of her dress and does not stop vomiting. Across the cabin, a Lutheran minister has wet himself and is laughing, not crying, laughing, because the human mind, when pushed past a certain line, stops behaving like a mind. Then, in the cargo hold, the cannons break loose. Each 4-pounder on the Albatross weighs roughly 1,200 pounds. There are 8 of them. The lashings 3-inch hemp rope soaked through, frayed by the constant pitching, let go one by one. A loose cannon is not a metaphor. It is 1,200 pounds of iron rolling sideways across a wooden deck in a hurricane. The first one crushes a sailor named Henry Webb against the bulkhead so completely that when they find him later, he is 2-dimensional. The second cannon takes out a support beam, and the lower deck begins to sag. This is what the Hollywood version never shows you. There is no music. There is no heroism. There is only noise and water and the smell of fear, which is a real smell. Sweat, urine, copper, and the captain's pistol, which he is now openly holding, because the second mate has just tried to break into the spirit room. The 18th century life jacket was a Catholic prayer, and the hope that drowning was quicker than the alternative. Spoiler, it wasn't. At 3 minutes past 3 in the morning, on the second night of the storm, you hear it. Not a crash, not a snap, something lower than that. A long, splintering moan that comes up from below the waterline, from somewhere deep inside the bones of the ship, and every sailor on deck stops moving at the same instant, because every sailor on deck knows what that sound is. The hull has breached. You turn toward the stern. You look for the longboat, the largest of the ship's small boats, lashed to the davits. The only thing on this ship that floats independently, the only thing standing between you and the abyss, and the longboat is gone. The davits are empty. A wave took her some time in the last hour, and nobody noticed, because nobody was looking. The Albatross is
Leave it, men.
dying,
Retreat to the upper
and
deck.
she is taking you with her. Stop the video right here. Think about this for a second. You are on a sinking ship in the middle of the Atlantic. The lifeboat is gone. You cannot swim. The nearest
fast,
land
lads.
is
Man the
600
pumps.
miles away.
No use. We're
The
taking on
captain
water
has a
too
loaded
fast.
pistol, and he is looking at the crew like a man taking inventory. What do you do? Drop your answer in the comments. Be honest. Not what you want to do, what you would actually do at 3 in the morning with the ocean coming up through the
We have one
floorboards.
boat left, men.
I read
Secure the
every
cutter
single
and prepare
one.
to abandon
And
ship.
while you're down there, hit that like button. Feed the algorithm with real history, because YouTube doesn't push this kind of story unless
We've
you
lost
tell
the
it to.
mainmast. Get the cutter
Now
launched now.
keep
Captain,
watching,
the hull is breached.
because what happens next
men, she's taking
is the
on too
part
much water.
most people don't survive long enough to remember. What happens next is the part most people don't survive long enough to remember. The order to abandon ship is not given. It does not have to be. The lower deck is now a flooded coffin. The foremast is leaning at an angle that defies geometry, and somewhere in the dark, the bell is ringing by itself, struck over and over by the pitch of a dying hull. There is one boat left, a 22-foot quarter cutter, lashed amidships, smaller than the longboat that the sea already took, designed in the King's Yard at Deptford to carry 12 men in calm water. There are 31 men and 4 passengers still alive on the Albatross. The math does not work. Everyone on deck
Get off the
does the
ladder.
math
Move it.
at the
Sinking.
same time.
Save yourselves.
What
Hurry up.
follows is not evacuation. It is a stampede. A boatswain's mate named Carter is trampled to death on the companion ladder by men he served beside for 2
Secure that
years.
line before we
Eleanor
lose her.
Thatcher, the merchant's wife, claws her way up
the
from the
boats,
passenger
quickly now.
hold with her son in her arms, and she does not make it. A sailor running past
That
knocks the
cutter
child
stays
out of her
lashed.
grip, and Eleanor
The next
goes
man who
back
steps
down
forward answers
into the
to this.
dark after him, and neither of them comes up again. The Lutheran minister, still laughing, walks calmly to the rail and steps off it like a man getting off a streetcar. He does not surface. Captain Hollis is at the cutter with his flintlock raised. He has already used it once. There is a sailor named Briggs lying on the deck with a hole in his chest because Briggs tried to push a younger man
Hold her steady.
aside to get
Don't
a
let
seat,
go.
and
We're
Hollis
almost
shot
clear of
him
the hooks.
in front of everyone. This is not cruelty.
Hold
This
fast, hold
is
fast.
Royal
We're
Navy
going under.
procedure,
Help us.
documented in 3 centuries of ship's logs. A captain who cannot enforce order at the boat is a captain who watches his crew capsize the only boat. Briggs bleeds out in under a minute. Nobody steps over him. They step on him. You get into the cutter because a man named Daniel Pike grabs the back of your coat and hauls you in. You will remember this for the rest of your life. You will also never see Daniel Pike again after week 3, because by then there will not be enough of him left to recognize. 23 of you make it into the boat. No mast, no sail, 2 oars. They should have had 8. Half a cask of fresh water, roughly 4 gallons. A wedge of salt pork wrapped in oilcloth. 1 sextant, miraculously intact. 0 charts that mean anything this far south. The cutter is so overloaded that the gunwales are 4 inches above the waterline. Every wave puts cold Atlantic into your lap. You row away from the ship, because if you don't, she will pull you down with her when she goes. From 100 yards out, in the grey light of dawn, you watch the albatross die. She rolls onto her starboard side first,
Day 1.
slow, almost
Sun beats
graceful,
down like a hammer
like a
on an
tired
anvil.
animal lying down. Then the masts go under, then the hull, and then, for 90 seconds, you will time it later in your memory, again and again. 90 exact seconds, you hear the men still trapped below. The sound carries across the water with awful clarity. It is not shouting, it is something underneath shouting. Then the ocean closes over the wreck, and the noise stops, and there is nothing left on the surface but a slick of broken wood and a single floating barrel of rum that nobody can reach. 23 men sit in an open boat and watch the place where 200 years of British shipbuilding used to be. Nobody speaks for an hour. By the end of day 1, the sun has come out, and that is somehow worse. In the tropics, in August, on open water, with no shade and no shelter, the sun is a separate kind of murder. Your skin blisters within 4 hours. By sundown, your forearms are weeping clear fluid, your lips split vertically down to the gum line. The salt spray that breaks over the bow lands in those splits and turns every breath into a fresh injury. The wooden bench under you, soaked, gritty, unforgiving, begins to grind the skin off your tailbone. 18th century sailors had a name for what comes next: boat sores. They are pressure ulcers that begin as a red patch on day 2 and end on day 9, as a hole rotted down to the bone, weeping pus that attracts flies even 500 miles from land. There is no treatment, there is no bandage, there is only the bench, which you cannot leave because there is nowhere else to go. By day 3, the hallucinations start. This is the part the survival manuals never explained. The horror of the open ocean is not the storm. It is what the brain does when there is no horizon to fix on. The sky and the sea are the same color. The boat moves in every direction at once. Your inner ear gives up. Your eyes give up. Severe dehydration in tropical conditions produces vivid, sustained, audio-visual hallucinations within 48 hours. A sailor named Pollard starts talking to his dead mother on day 3. A passenger, a tobacco factor from Norfolk, sees the city of Lisbon on the horizon and tries to walk to it. They pull him back into the boat twice. The third time, they let him go. There was a real ship called the Peggy, American merchantman, 1765. Lost her rigging in a North Atlantic gale, drifted for 3 months. Her captain, David Harrison, kept a logbook the entire time, and that logbook is why we know exactly what is about to happen to you. Harrison wrote it down in his own hand. He used clean, precise 18th century English. He did not editorialize. He did not need to. By day 5, the water cask is 1/4 full. The captain rations it 2 ounces per man per day. 2 ounces is 4 tablespoons. You can hold it in your mouth without swallowing for 30 seconds before the urge to swallow becomes more powerful than the urge to breathe. Your tongue, by day 6, is swollen to roughly twice its normal size. It feels like a piece of dried beef stuffed behind your teeth. Speech is no longer possible. You communicate by pointing. Around you, men begin to do the forbidden thing. They drink seawater. Every sailor knows it kills you. The salt content overwhelms the kidneys, accelerates dehydration, produces violent delirium within hours. Every sailor knows. Every sailor in this boat will do it anyway. There is no atheist in a hurricane. There is no gentleman in a lifeboat. Some men drink their own urine. This works exactly once. The second pass through the kidneys produces a fluid so concentrated with salt and waste that it is functionally identical to seawater. They do it anyway. Of course they do. On the morning of day 7, the water cask is empty. James Mowbray is 14 years old. He is the powder monkey from the Albatross, the boy who used to run gunpowder cartridges from the magazine to the gun crews during drills. He is the youngest person in the boat. Sometime during the night, while the others slept, James broke the captain's rule. James drank seawater, a pint of it, maybe more. By 10 o'clock that morning, he is convulsing. By noon, he is foaming at the mouth. By 2 in the afternoon, James Mowbray is dead, and he has spent his last 3 hours screaming sounds that no human throat is supposed to make. The men in the boat sit in silence and look at the body of the 14-year-old boy. Then they look at each other. Then they look at the body again, somewhere in the back of the cutter, and later, none of you will be able to agree on who said it first, or whether it was even said out loud at all, or whether it simply rose up from inside all of your skulls at the same moment a voice puts it into words. We'll have to draw lots. We'll have to draw lots. The phrase does not come out of nowhere. It is not improvised. It is, in 1782, a piece of working maritime vocabulary, as familiar to any sailor in the Atlantic as the words reef or port or belay. The British called it the custom of the sea. Other navies had their own names for it. The Portuguese had a name. The Dutch had a name. The Spanish had a name. The reason every seafaring nation had a name for it is because every seafaring nation had done it repeatedly for at least 200 years. The custom of the sea is the unwritten clause at the bottom of the unwritten contract that every man signs the moment he steps off a wharf and onto a deck. When the food runs out, the man who pulls the short straw feeds the others. The first body, mercifully, does not require a draw. James Mowbray is already dead. The captain, and yes, it is still Captain Hollis, sitting at the stern of the cutter with his coat off and his sleeves rolled to the elbow, because he has been a captain for 22 years, and he understands that the moment he refuses to do this himself is the moment his command ends. Takes out a rigging knife. A rigging knife is a small fixed blade tool, no longer than a man's hand, designed for cutting hemp and splicing line. It is not a butcher's tool, it is what is available. The captain looks at the body. of the 14-year-old powder monkey for a long moment. Then he begins. Historical accounts of what happens next, drawn primarily from Captain David Harrison's logbook aboard the Peggy in 1765, describe the act in language so dry and bureaucratic that you have to read it 3 times before you understand what you are reading. We took the boy aft. The mate and I performed the necessary office. The men consumed what could be consumed, raw, there being no means of fire. That is the entire entry. That is what the 18th century thought of this. A line in a ledger. The smell, Harrison did not record. The smell is something the survivors agreed, without discussing it, never to speak of. Warm blood in salt air has a specific weight to it. It does not dissipate. It coats the inside of the nose for a week. Men who have eaten human flesh under these conditions, when later interviewed, describe the taste with a phrase that recurs across 200 years of maritime testimony in 3 different languages from 4 different oceans. They say it tastes sweet, like veal. Several of them, in the moment of eating it for the first time, weep. Then, also in the moment, they ask for more. The body has been starving for 9 days. The body does not have manners. By the end of day 11, James Mowbray is gone, not buried, not committed to the deep, gone, the bones. And this is the detail the schoolbook version omits. The bones are not discarded, they are too valuable. The marrow is broken out and sucked clean. The long bones of the legs are sharpened into makeshift fishing tools. The skull, the ribs, the smaller bones kept in a sack at the bottom of the boat. There is no waste. The men in the cutter, who 1 week ago were Anglican churchgoers and dues-paying members of the Liverpool Seafarers Guild, have become something more efficient than that. They have become a closed system. On day 13, they draw lots. This is the part the survival manuals never describe, because it never made it into the manuals. The straws are cut from a length of marline twine sailor's rope, using the captain's knife. 22 pieces. One is shorter than the others by ½ an inch. They are placed in Hollis's hat. Each man,
So be it.
in
We
silence,
accept the terms.
draws. A Welsh able seaman named Owen Pritchard draws the short one. Owen is 34 years old. He has a wife in Cardiff named Bronwen. He looks at the straw in his hand for about 10 seconds. He does not cry. He does not beg. He does not run, because there is nowhere to run. He asks the captain for 1 hour to make his peace with God. The captain, and this is documented in Harrison's logbook with the same disturbing flatness, gives him 15 minutes. Owen prays, out loud, in Welsh. The other men in the boat look away. Then the rigging knife comes out a second time. Here is the myth bust the high school textbook will never give you. The custom of the sea was not honourable. It was not democratic. It was not fair. On the Peggy in 1765, there was no draw the first time. The crew simply chose a man, an enslaved African named Wiltshire, travelling as cargo, and killed him because his life was, in the calculus of the 18th century, worth less than theirs. Wiltshire's name appears in Harrison's logbook. He is recorded the same way the salt pork was recorded. Wiltshire was the first body. The drawing of lots came later, only after the white sailors had run out of a black man to eat. Read that again. The drawing of lots came later, only after. This is what the custom of the sea actually was. It was a polite, procedural fiction laid on top of 2 centuries of racial murder, drawn into formality only when the supply of legally disposable human beings ran out. Every white sailor in this story knew this. Every captain knew it. Every Admiralty court, when the survivors finally reached port, knew it too, and chose, repeatedly, for over 100 years, to do nothing. British and American maritime courts in the 1700s did not prosecute cannibalism at sea. The legal precedent necessity was so well established that survivors were not even questioned closely. The men who did this came home. They drank ale in pubs. They went to church on Sunday. They held their grandchildren on their knees. They never spoke a word of it again. Not to anyone. Not until they were dying. And even then, most of them took it with them. This will not change until 1884, when an English court finally tries 2 survivors of the yacht Mignonette for the murder of a 17-year-old cabin boy named Richard Parker, R.V., Dudley, and Stevens. The defendants are convicted. Their sentences are commuted within 6 months. The court is more interested, frankly, in establishing the precedent than in punishing the men. The 18th century knew exactly what it was doing. The 18th century just decided not to look. The 18th century Maritime Survival Manual had exactly 1 chapter, and it was about your shipmates. By day 23, the cutter contains 3 living men. You are one of them. You weigh 92 pounds. Your gums have receded so far that your teeth move when you press them with your tongue. You have not produced urine in 6 days. The other 2, Daniel Pike, who pulled you into the boat on the first night, and a Cornish sailmaker named Trewin, are slumped at the bow, eyes open, not moving. You are not sure if they are alive. You are not sure if you are alive. And then, on the horizon, you see a sail. It is real. It is not a hallucination. It is a Portuguese brig, the Senhora da Esperança, out of File in the Azores, running northeast under a stiff breeze. She has seen you. She is coming about. She is coming for you. The Portuguese sailors who climb down into your cutter with a rope and a ladder will, all 4 of them, vomit into the Atlantic before they finish pulling the 3 of you out. They will see what is at the bottom of the boat. They will see the sack. They will see the small, careful pile of bones, picked clean and stacked the way a careful man stacks firewood. They will tell this story for the rest of their lives. You will never tell it, not once, not to a priest, not to your wife, not on your deathbed. You will simply come home and you will be quiet. Quick check-in, 15 seconds. If you have made it this far into the video, if you are still here after everything you just heard, hit that like button right now. I am asking you directly. because we are about to enter the darkest part of this story. You think the rescue is the end. It isn't. It's where the
October
real
14th,
damage
1782.
starts. You think
I
the
finally set foot on
rescue
the quay of
is
Lisbon,
the end.
though my legs
It
still
isn't.
recalled the ocean's
You
rhythm.
walk off the Senhora da Esperança in Lisbon on the 14th of October 1782. You weigh 89 pounds. You are 31 years old. Your hair, which was brown when you boarded the Albatross in Bridgetown, is white. Not grey, white. The Portuguese surgeon
Lisbon
who
Harbour,
examines you in the harbour
1782.
infirmary
We had
writes
survived the voyage
a
with
single
fever,
word
yet
in his report in Latin, and that word is desfigurado, disfigured. He does not mean your body, he means the thing behind your eyes. The three of you who came off that boat, you, Daniel Pike, and Trewin the Cornish sailmaker, never see each other again, not by accident, by choice. You shake hands on the dock in Lisbon, the way men shake hands at a funeral, and then you walk in 3 different directions, and you never look back, because looking at each other is like looking into a mirror, and none of you can stand the reflection. Within 11 months, Daniel Pike will be dead in a London gin house. He drinks himself to death so methodically that the
Bet that's
coroner
secure now.
records
Aye,
it
aye,
as
almost
suicide. Trewin disappears into the American colonies sometime in the spring of 1783. There is no record of him after
Mary.
that. None. You go home to Bristol.
I've
Your
travelled
wife
many
Mary
miles to
opens the
find
door.
you.
She does not recognize you. It takes her almost a full minute to understand that the white-haired skeleton on her doorstep is the man she married. Your son, the son you had never met, is 4 months old. He screams when you try to hold him. Babies know. Babies always know. You live another 41 years. You never go to sea again. You cannot sleep with the windows closed,
The needle
because
always
closed
points true
windows
north,
feel
yet
like the
path
lower
ahead
deck.
remains
You
obscured by
cannot
shadow and
eat
doubt.
meat, any meat, for the rest of your life. You wake every single night between 2 and 3 in the morning with the taste of salt on your tongue, and you sit up in the dark and you wait for it to pass, and it never quite does. Between 1,700 and 1,800, the British Admiralty and Lloyd's of London estimate that more than 50,000 sailors died at sea in storms. The real number is higher. It is much higher. Thousands more died in open boats, in the silence after the storm, in the slow arithmetic of the custom of the sea. We do not know how many were eaten by their friends. We never will. The men who came home did not write it down. The men who did not come home could not. The 18th century did not bury its dead. The 18th century erased them. On the mantelpiece in your quiet cottage in Bristol in the year 1823, there is a single brass compass. Your father gave it to you when you were 13. You carried it through the storm. You carried it through the boat. You carried it home. It sits there now, in the lamplight, perfectly still. The needle points north. It has pointed north every day for 41 years. You stare at it every night before you go to bed, because you know exactly which direction the ocean is, and you know it is still waiting. The compass no longer spins, but you do. Every time you close your eyes, If you made it to the end of this video, if you survived the albatross with me, I want you to do one thing. Drop the word survived in the comments. One word, all caps. That is how I know you were here. That is how I know you went all the way down with us and came back up. Then hit subscribe, because next week on Grim Reality, we are going somewhere darker. There is always somewhere darker. The ocean is patient. So am I. I will see you in the next one.